Your dog just destroyed something. And in the 3 seconds that follow, you reveal everything about how you handle stress, loss of control, and rupture in a relationship. Research on behavioral reactivity consistently shows that our responses to provocation are more diagnostic of our internal state than the provocation itself. If you want to understand what your dog is really telling you, you are in the right place. Picture the moment in detail. Your dog has chewed through something, pulled the leash so hard your shoulder ached, lunged at another dog, and you stumbled sideways. Ignored you completely when you called their name, and not for the first time. Every dog owner knows this experience. The behavior itself lasts maybe 5 seconds, but what happens inside you in that moment can last hours. Your chest tightens, your voice changes register. You might feel a hot flush behind your ears that has almost nothing to do with the leash and everything to do with the last 3 hours of your day. Here's what most people miss. The dog's behavior is the trigger. It is not the subject. What the trigger activates, the cascade of frustration, helplessness, embarrassment, or rigid control, that is the subject. That is what this video is actually about. Because your dog misbehaves in front of other people, and what you feel is shame, not inconvenience. Your dog does not come when called, and what rises in you is something that feels remarkably like being ignored by someone important. These are not random emotional responses. They are very specific ones. And specific emotional responses have specific origins. Here is the meta-psychology pivot that changes how you see the entire conversation. Researchers who study behavioral reactivity, the speed and intensity with which we respond to perceived provocation, have found something consistent across contexts. Our reaction pattern is not random. It is a trained response. Trained by early experience, by relationships where conflict was handled in specific ways, and by the neural grooves those experiences carved over time. When your dog does something wrong, there is no HR department. There is no social script. There is no professional distance you can invoke. It is just you, your nervous system, and an animal who has genuinely confused expectations with affection and rules with safety. In 2011, researcher James B. Joseph published findings on the downstream cost of unchecked behavioral reactivity in close relationships, documenting how the reactor, not the instigator of bad behavior, determines the long-term damage to the relationship's health and trust architecture. His finding, chronic reactive responses corrode the safety of the relationship from the inside, regardless of who started it. Your dog is not testing you. Your dog is revealing you. Not to judge you, to give you information that if you actually look at it, could change both of your lives. That is not a dog training insight. That is a self-awareness opportunity disguised as a chewed-up shoe. Number 1. The freeze response. Some owners go completely still when their dog misbehaves. The voice drops. The body tightens. They become very, very quiet in a way that is not calm. It is the opposite of calm. It is shut down. If this is your pattern, you already know it. You have noticed that you go somewhere else in those moments. Not angry exactly, more like absent. You issue a correction in a flat, affectless tone, and then you disengage. The moment passes. You do not process it. You move on. Freeze responses in humans are linked to early environments where expressing strong emotion was either unsafe or futile. When the nervous system learned that reaction changes nothing, it stopped reacting overtly. The signal went underground. Your dog misbehaves, and your system files it, not as a solved problem, but as a suppressed one. This matters for your dog, because dogs read stillness. They do not experience your flat voice as authority. Many experience it as threat. Something is wrong, but unreadable, which is one of the most destabilizing signals a social animal can receive. That is not your fault. That is not your dog's fault. It is a nervous system pattern that made sense once, and is now playing out in a relationship where it no longer needs to. Number 2. The spiral. Other owners do not freeze, they escalate. The dog pulls the leash, and the owner's voice goes up 3 registers in 2 seconds. The dog chews something, and within moments, the owner is recounting every other thing the dog has done wrong this week, this month, possibly since they first brought them home. The spiral is not really about the behavior in front of you. It is about accumulated stress that has found a release valve. Behavioral researchers studying workplace incivility have found that when individuals lack robust emotional regulation skills, minor provocations become the conduit for much larger emotional loads that have been building long before the triggering event. Your dog pulled the leash, but what poured out of you was 6 hours of a bad day, a hard conversation you have not processed, and a body that has been waiting since Tuesday for somewhere to put all of it. Owners who spiral often report profound guilt afterward. They know in the moment it is disproportionate. They can hear themselves. The gap between what they intended and what happened is painful and clear, which actually is a significant sign of emotional self-awareness. The spiral is not the problem. The awareness gap is the resource. Your dog forgives faster than you do. If that just made you see your relationship with your pet in a completely different way, hit subscribe. We explore the science of the human-pet bond every week and what it reveals about us. All right, let us keep going. Number 3. The Punisher. Some owners respond to bad behavior with swift, certain consequence. Not necessarily harshness, but a firmness that has a particular energy behind it. Control. The need to reestablish order, immediately and without ambiguity. The Punisher pattern is often linked to a deep discomfort with uncertainty. When behavior breaks from expectation, the nervous system registers it as a threat, not to safety necessarily, but to predictability. And predictability, for people who grew up in unpredictable environments, is not a preference. It is a survival requirement. This pattern often belongs to the most disciplined, high-functioning owners, people who have organized their lives around structure and competence. Their dogs are often well-trained in the conventional sense, but there is sometimes a brittleness to the relationship, a quality of conditional safety that dogs pick up on. Behave, and you are beloved. Step out of line, and something in the air changes. Here is the reframe. A dog that behaves out of genuine security is different from a dog that behaves out of apprehension. The behaviors can look identical from the outside. The dog's nervous system knows the difference. The Punisher is not a bad owner. They are often the most committed owner in the room. What they are learning is that safety and control, while related, are not the same thing. Number 4. The Dismisser. Then there is the owner whose primary response to bad behavior is essentially nothing. A shrug, a small laugh. Oh, he just does that. The behavior gets narrated more than addressed. Guests are warned. Apologies are offered. Actual change rarely follows. Dismissing bad behavior is often framed as easygoing, relaxed, non-reactive. And in some cases that is accurate. Genuinely secure people can tolerate imperfection without distress. But the dismisser pattern is often something else. It is the avoidance of conflict, masquerading as acceptance. People with dismissive avoidant attachment styles, a pattern documented extensively in human relationship research, tend to minimize disruption because addressing it requires tolerating discomfort, confrontation, and the possibility that something needs to change. It is emotionally cheaper, in the short term, to decide the problem is not a problem. Your dog is not served by this either. Dogs actually do better with clear, predictable feedback loops, not harsh ones, but consistent ones. Absence of correction is not kindness. It is ambiguity. And ambiguity for a social animal trying to understand the rules of its group is a persistent, low-grade stressor. The dismisser loves their dog enormously. What they are working on is tolerating the discomfort of repair. Number 5. The Fixer. The Fixer responds to bad behavior with an immediate, comprehensive plan. New training protocol. Research into the behavior. Product ordered within the hour. They are already reading 3 books about the root cause before their dog has finished whatever it was doing. This looks like attentiveness. Often it is. But the Fixer pattern can also be a sophisticated form of anxiety management. The feeling of doing something standing in for the more uncomfortable feeling of not knowing. People who score high on what psychologists call conscientiousness tend toward the Fixer response. Their internal experience of their dog's bad behavior is often closer to anxiety than anger. The behavior is not just inconvenient, it is a signal that something is wrong that needs to be solved, because unsolved problems accumulate and expand and become catastrophic if not caught early. The Fixer's dog often gets excellent care, but there can be an exhausting quality to the relationship. A dog that has been trained and retrained, whose behavior is perpetually under review, who lives in a home that is always optimizing. Dogs need room to be wrong without it becoming a project. They need the same thing we do, a relationship where the default is safety, not assessment. None of that makes you a bad owner. Number 6. The regulator. And then there is a response that looks different from all of the above. The dog misbehaves. The owner pauses, not freezes, pauses. There is a breath. There is a name, spoken clearly but not sharply. There is a redirect, and then it is done. Not because the behavior did not matter, but because the owner did not need the dog to have behaved well in order to feel okay about themselves. This is emotional regulation, not the absence of feeling, but the capacity to feel the feeling without being governed by it. Research on emotional regulation consistently identifies it as the single strongest predictor of relationship health across every close bond we form, with partners, colleagues, children, and yes, dogs. The regulator is not unaffected. They feel the frustration. They notice the embarrassment. They may even feel a flash of anger. But there is enough internal space between stimulus and response that they can choose what happens next. This is not a personality trait we're born with. It is a skill. And crucially, it is a skill your dog can help you build. Because the moment of a dog's bad behavior is one of the most reliable emotional activation moments in a low-stakes environment that exists. It is a practice ground. You did not teach your dog to be your mirror, but they are. So here is what you now know about yourself. You have a response pattern. It is not random. It was built by your history, your nervous system, and the particular emotional grammar of your earliest close relationships. And it runs, whether you invited it or not, in the 3 seconds after your dog does something wrong. The good news, and it is real good news, is that awareness of the pattern changes the pattern. Not completely, not immediately, but measurably. Neuroscientists call this the pause and plan response, the capacity, built through practice, to insert a moment of reflection between activation and action. Dogs, it turns out, are a remarkable training ground for exactly this capacity, because their behavior is frequent, low stakes relative to other provocations, and they offer you repair opportunities within the same 10 minutes. Here's the practice. The next time your dog does something wrong, before you respond, just notice. What is the physical sensation in your body? Where does it land? How big is it relative to what actually happened? You do not have to change anything in that moment. Just notice. That noticing, accumulated over time, is how the pattern shifts. Your dog is not asking you to be perfect. They are asking you to be present. Those two things are not the same, and knowing the difference might be the most useful thing you take from this video. The next time it happens, the leash pull, the chewed thing, the ignored command, there will be a moment, a 3-second window. In that window, something in you will move. Now you have a name for it. The freeze, the spiral, the punisher, the dismisser, the fixer, the regulator. None of these are verdicts. They are data points. They are your nervous system speaking in the only language it has. Your dog did not set out to teach you anything. They set out to be a dog, imperfectly, enthusiastically, without apology. But in doing so, they handed you something most therapy hours take months to surface. A clear, recurring, low-stakes window into how you handle rupture, uncertainty, and the limits of your control. That is an extraordinary gift, even when it is wearing your favorite shoe. You did not teach your dog to be anxious, but your nervous system is speaking a language they already understand. Thank you for investing your time with us today. Now that you know your reaction to your dog's bad behavior is a direct window into your own emotional regulation patterns, we are curious. Which response type do you recognize in yourself? And has your dog ever caught you off guard with what they reflected back? Let us know in the comments. New episodes drop every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you are subscribed to catch the next one. Until then, decode your dog, decode yourself.